Okay, excellent. Well, welcome to the Local Business Growth Lunchtime Webinar Series 2022. I'm Adam Bude from the Authentic Sales Training Academy. Excited to be co-hosting our 6-week live and interactive series with you on how to not only survive a potential recession and the rough waters that can come from that, but more so to thrive well and truly beyond that. We put together an expert panel of industry leaders and business advisors from the accounting world, banking and finance world, sales and marketing worlds. Each week we'll be hosting a quick 20-minute session covering key topics of interest on how you can restructure for the future business expansion, growth and success. We've heard from Matt White from MJW Advisory, Phil Imhoff from Bank of Queensland, the Robina branch, Glenn Bossy from 2020 Financial Services. Last week, we had Mr. Mark Grant from Cost Less Payment Solutions. And today we've got Nik Cree from SmashGo and a special guest, Mr. Peter Munckton, former Chief Economist from the Bank of Queensland, which you're going to be sharing some very useful information that I'm looking forward to, followed by myself. At the end of each session, we'll be opening the lines for a Q&A, and make sure you've got your questions ready and who you want to target them towards. And if you're watching the replay, be sure to put the comments in the replay so we can come back and answer them for you later. So we'll get straight into today's episode with Peter Munckton. So a quick bio on Peter, and then we'll go into Nik. Peter has been the Chief Economist at the Bank of Queensland, has been at the Bank of Queensland for 8 years. Previously worked at the Federal Treasury in Canberra, as well as in a senior economics role at Bankers Trust and the CBA. At the CBA, Peter also held a senior role in group strategy. He has co-authored reports on the Australian and Chinese financial systems that gained significant domestic and international media attention. Peter's ambition as a child was to play cricket for Australia, but a series of unfortunate injuries and a complete lack of talent meant that he ended up as an economist. So with that, Peter, I'm looking forward to seeing your talent shine as a former economist. How are you going?
Well, thanks very much, Adam. I didn't realise I was a former economist. I'm hoping that Bank of Queensland is still paying me. I should actually out after
Chief.
Hopefully, I'm still a current chief economist, unless there's whole lot of more news than I suspected I was going to get from this webinar. So look, thanks very much, Adam, for that very kind intro. I couldn't have written much more, any more decent myself, actually, so I'll take that one down. How long have I got to speak for, by the way?
10, 15
10 hours. Fantastic. Okay. I'll run with that. So look, what I'll quickly run through is the outlook for the economy. And to start off with Adam's first point, talk about recessions, right? So there's been plenty of it around, and if you look at the newspapers, the TV, etc., go to Facebook, there's a lot of sort of doom and gloom out there. Let's start off with a point. Actually, the economy is in very good shape in a macro sense. If you look at the indicator that everyone looks at in terms of how the economy is going, that's the unemployment rate. That is at its lowest level in 50 years. Right? Lowest level in 50 years. If you have a look on your screens at all the speakers, I'm very, very confident that not one of those gentlemen was actually working the last time the unemployment rate was that low. Guys, if you were, don't tell anyone. All right, so we'll just keep it to ourselves. But I'll make the assumption that no one was working that low. 50 years ago, it tells me the economy is in incredible shape. If you look at firms' order books, they are really strong. For all the doom and gloom, pessimism about consumers, most of them out there spending, as we saw from the most retail spending number. Right, so people are out there spending. Businesses have invested for a fair while. That's the reason why their capex spending is pretty strong. Governments, governments actually should be spending less, given how strong the economy currently is. And I was out at West New South Wales about a month ago, and there were some of the more optimistic people around. You see, the weather we've got today doesn't really help us out, but by and large, they're optimistic because the prices they can get are pretty high. So whatever they can grow, whatever our miners can get out of the ground, they got a good price for. So wherever you look, actually, currently, there is actually a very good story to tell about how the economy is going. Now, that is not for absolutely everyone, right? So if you're the poorest people in our land, they are struggling with the high prices. There's no doubt about that. And a number of businesses are also struggling with those high prices because they may not be able to pass them on. And they're the firms in particular that are finding the going toughest. So there is elements of society as of today that are hurting, But if you look at a macro standpoint about how the economy is going, 3.5% sums it up. It's in a good state today. Does that mean we won't see any slowing in the economy? Well, we will see it, right? We know that interest rates are going up. We know that inflation is eating people's incomes. Every single time that interest rates have gone up in the last 30 years, we have seen a rise in the unemployment rate. Every single time, right? So I think it's virtually certain that that's what will happen. It will take a while before that happens in terms of how we'll see it in our economy. One of the reasons is that interest rates obviously hurt people because they've got to pay a higher mortgage. We know in the last couple of years, a whole lot of people took out fixed rate mortgages. So they are not paying the higher mortgage rate yet. In fact, many of them won't for at least another year. So that's the first bit, that for many people, we're protected from those higher rates for a fair while. The second thing is, after the last couple of years, can you imagine you're in Melbourne, the last couple of years, do you really care after your last 2 years whether lettuces are $2 or $12? You're not going to care. After your last couple of years, you're just going to go out there and spend. But by the time we get to next year, just the fact that prices are high for a fair while just will mean after a while you've done all the spending you need to do, then you'll be a little bit more caution. The third big thing is, so where I'm speaking to you today, across the road there's a place being built, so a place next to that needs to be built. Both those things have been building for at least a year because it's just been very hard with either the weather or to try and get people to actually build the places, right? So there's a huge amount of work in the construction pipeline for those reasons. But by the time it gets mid next year, a lot of that work for builders would have worked its way through. So that's the reason why right now we're doing very strong. By the time we get to second half next year, we will see signs of economic slowing. Then it gets to the sort of point that Adam touched on. Does that mean we will get a recession? Now, I'm defining a recession as a serious economic slowing that lasts for some time, at least 18 months to 2 years, right? And when I say serious, again, I'm going to use the unemployment rate. Serious is a 4 to 5 percentage point increase in the unemployment rate. That's what a recession is really all about. I don't see a recession from that definition. Right? I see there will be a slowing in the economy. I think there will be a rise in the unemployment rate. The RBA themselves are forecasting that. But I think the rise in the unemployment rate will be more like a sort of 1 to 2 percentage point rise, not those really big numbers I'm talking about. Clearly, if you're one of those people who've lost their job, then that's an issue. Clearly, that's an issue for some people. But from a macro standpoint, that's more a slowing of the economy than a really bad recession. What does that mean in terms of how we're going to go in terms of flow of the economy? This year, as I said, was good. We'll see some slowing next year. Early 24 will be sort of probably in the midst of the whole thing. But I am positive on the medium term for Australia economy. I'm positive on the medium term of the Australian economy because there's just so much needs to be done. Like where you guys are today, where I am today here in Sydney, in many places today, one of the things that stands out is vacancy rates really low. Now, we're building a whole lot of homes, as I said, but we've also got, starting right now, a big increase in immigration. And so by the time we get to 2024, 2025, we'll likely find, again, we're short of homes. We need to start building more. Infrastructure. Governments hadn't got so much infrastructure work to do. They've really got another sort of 10 to 20 years, whether it be Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, lots of infrastructure work to be done. We know there's going to be increased spending on defence. Also, we know we've got literally billions, tens of billions of dollars to be spent on climate change associated energy infrastructure. So wherever you look, there's so much work that needs to be done here. That is the reason why I'm positive on the medium term. So right now, the economy's in good shape. We will see some slowing as we go into next year, 2024, but I think the medium-term outlook remains good. I'm going to sort of quickly finalise on what are the risks to this somewhat optimistic view, right? And I'll just quickly touch on three. The first one is Russia and Ukraine. The biggest issue was, before the war started, was Russia one day just going to go turn off the gas to the rest of Europe because 40% of their energy needs comes from Russia. They have done that. Now, in the short term, that's not a really big issue because the Europeans have been clever enough to store up a whole lot of gas. But what happens as we go into next year, all the way through, their gas reserves are used up, how do they actually power their economy? Right, so that is issue one. That remains a big issue while the war happens. Now, one plus from this, from our standpoint, is that those high prices that hurts them so much, we are actually one of the big beneficiaries because we're one of the biggest gas exporters in the world. So it is an issue, it will be an issue, but it's something that we're somewhat protected on because we're a big gas exporter. The second big issue is China. You may have seen stories recently that a number of Chinese people stopped paying their mortgages. let me make it absolutely clear that Bank of Queensland supports people paying mortgages, so we're not in support of that. But they stop paying the mortgages because basically in China, there's a whole lot of people who are taking out a whole lot of debt, right? And it's not so much the people with the mortgages, it's the developers over there who are taking out too much debt and can't pay it back. And the big issue in China is you've got too much debt for the size of the economy. How are they going to deal with that? The Chinese government are very smart. They understand what the issue is. The Chinese government have a flawless track record for 40 years keeping the economy going. But this remains a key issue, the outlook for the Chinese economy. Can the Chinese government keep their economy on the straight and narrow? And the third and final one is one I'll finish on is interest rates. We know they're going up. How high and how fast? That's a critical issue, not only for us, but the rest of the world, because that's what's happening globally. Now, one of the things I was worried about a month or two ago, that the Reserve Bank will feel compelled to increase their interest rates in line with the rest of the world. And the rest of the world are going up very aggressively. And that would be a problem for us because, as we know, many people in Australia, about 40% of households own mortgages, and many of them own a fair size mortgage. A lot of those would be impacted by the higher interest rates. And this is the really good news by the recent RBA moves, only go a quarter percentage point move, because all of a sudden they're not being quite as aggressive. They're happy to look about how our economy is going, how our inflation rate's looking, and it gives me some comfort that they won't be as aggressive as what could be happening globally, which gives me some comfort that the slowdown in our economy will be a slowdown, nothing more severe. So look, I might leave it there, I think, Adam, just with summarising that right now the economy is in good shape. We will see some slowing because of the higher interest rates and the impact of inflation, but the medium-term outlook is good. China and Russia are two really big issues we need to look out for, but the other really big one is interest rates, how high and how fast. It looks like the RBA is keeping its eye on the growth and inflation thing, so it looks like a good outcome, but that's probably the key thing we need to be watching out for over the next year or two in terms of the possibilities of recessions. I'll leave it there. Thanks, Adam.
Amazing, Peter. Thank you. Do we want to open up for Q&A now with Peter while it's fresh in people's minds, or should we do it at the end after Nik's?
I just think we should do it now, and then I mean, if Peter's got to go, or I was going to ask one question, Peter, with the federal government debt and the government public sector debt, as we change to an environment type of focus away from our resources, do you see an issue with the government debt going forward?
Yeah, so our debt is high by our historical standards, but not by international standards. So if you look at the federal government debt, it's around about 40% or so of GDP. If you add in the states, it's about 60% of our GDP, right? So by our historical standards, that's big. If you compare much of Europe, you compare the US, it's about 100% of GDP, or about twice as high as what ours is. So if we're worried about us, they should be seriously worried. Now, you're absolutely right to raise it. And one of the reasons we're right to raise it is essentially over the last 30, 40 years, one of the big benefits that governments have had, like households for that matter, is that you take on more debt because interest rates were coming down. It was more affordable, right? Now, all of a sudden, we've got interest rates going up. How high is sort of an open question. So all of a sudden, taking on all that debt does start to have a real and sort of ongoing cost. So it's right that you raise it. And of course, the government is having a budget in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And one of the things they're going to be focusing on is the size of the deficits and the debt going forward. So it is right that we need to look at it, because one of the big benefits we have had as an economy now for the last 20 years is our low debt. Through the, we didn't even have to have a recession during the pandemic, right? It was sort of almost a slight choice thing. We got through it really well because our debt was low. The government could spend a whole lot of money to help out. During the GFC, when most of the rest of the world in recession, we didn't have one. The reason was we had really low debt and the government could do something about it. Every time we have a recession, essentially debt to GDP increases by about 20%. So we've gone from essentially 0 up to 20 to 25. Now we're up to close to 52 recessions later on globally. So we've still got the ability to support ourselves, but we're a small country that's very reliant on global sort of capital flows to get money in. So we need to have our finances in reasonable shape. In fairness, the government understands that, and the aim will be to get lower budget deficits. But I think where the really big question is, Glenn, here is that everyone sort of agrees that should be the outcome. We should need lower deficits, not increase our debt. The question is, what does that practically mean? Because there's not too many people putting their hands up and sort of saying, actually stop spending more money on me. I went through defence, I went through infrastructure, NDIS is another one, healthcare, aged care, education. Everyone's sort of saying we need more spending over here. right? So if we're going to have deficits low and the spending not so low, what's the one thing, how are you going to fund it? That must mean higher taxes, right? So that's the really big question. It looks like a society we're agreeing that we want more government in the economy. If we want more government in the economy, not as big a deficit, that means a higher tax. And one of the things, as you know, they're discussing and will likely announce in the budget is that those income tax cuts, the third round of them, which starts in 2024, there is looks like to be some changes to that, and partly for the reason you're touching on, to fund the sort of lower deficits.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else got any questions?
I think Andrew had a question, didn't you, Andrew? Put on the chat.
Yeah, look, I didn't realise they were verbal questions. So you mentioned the three concerns that you had, and the second one was well, I think it was the first one Russia, or the second one Russia,
First one, Russia, yes.
and that they might cut off the gas supplies. I think that whole Nord Stream thing just stinks, and it ain't gas that's smelling. Why would they blow up their own pipelines?
Yeah, it's an interesting question actually about why.
They're very silly.
Sorry?
Or it was somebody else, and if so, you know, what the hell's going on at a bigger level?
Yeah, look, I can't come up with a really good reason for that. It's obviously got the Europeans worried. What it does mean is that basically there's, you know, there might be a way, I can't think of off the top of my head, about if the infrastructure is there, can they get the gas some other how? But if the infrastructure is not there, i.e. it's, you know, is blowing up, then you can't get the gas, right? And where the issue is that, you know, this year, as we know, Europe's had a very warm summer, and it looks all probability to be a warm winter. And with the gas they've got stored up and the fact it's a warm winter, you know, Putin, I think, was sort of hoping that this would be a really big problem over this winter, but it looks like it won't be. But of course, they're still going to need the gas this winter, and they're going to use up most of it to try and get through winter. So therefore, the issue that they've got, that they could have had this winter, they're going to have in the future, because they'll try and get their gas elsewhere. But one of the reasons the gas price is not as high as it was 2 or 3 months ago is their Chinese economy slowing, they're not buying as much gas. The Chinese economy ever got stronger again and bought more gas, then where does this gas come from? What is the gas price? So I suspect it's just like, you're not going to get any gas from us, full stop. That's my suspicion about why the infrastructure is blown up, but I don't know. There's a whole lot of suspicions about why it is, but I haven't heard a very good thesis yet. What was the driver of the explosions?
Sure. I hope you're right. My family in England, they say there's a lot of fear over there that it's not going to be as mild a winter as they're being told, and there's a lot of people going to get cold.
Yes, well, they certainly would need an extra blanket. You know, it's like, the thing is that look, let's hope it is. Let's just, you know, absolutely hope that it's going to be a sort of a reasonable winter, because otherwise it's going to be pretty tough. But the issue that we've got is that essentially a lot of the infrastructure was sort of set up that you got it through this pipeline, you know, big amounts of it. And it usually takes somewhere between 3 to 7 years to actually adjust your economy to try and get energy in different sorts of ways. So this issue, even if they get through this winter, this is going to be a live issue for a while yet, for at least as long as the sort of problems with Russia and Ukraine last. And who absolutely knows how long that will be.
Thank you. I love your optimism. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Peter, what's your thoughts on Aussie US dollar over the next, say, 12, 18 months?
So look, I've got a very strong view in this. It's basically only one of 3 things going to happen. It's either can go up, it can go down. All right, so hopefully that's sort of some sort of use in terms of.
You've been in politics, Peter.
So look, what I would say on the Aussie US is that if you look at virtually every currency in the world, one of the things that stands out is really low versus the US dollar. That is sort of the overwhelming theme. So essentially, a lot of the theme of the currency markets over the last 6 to 12 months is not so much an Aussie dollar or a euro or yen or whatever it will be. It's a US dollar question. Because the US economy is pretty strong, because the US central bank has made it very clear we're going to put up rates very aggressively, and because there's some uncertainty in the world, basically everyone's backing in the US dollar big time, which is the reason why it's up against everyone. So really your question comes down to what's the outlook for the US dollar and the Australian dollar, because that's been the overwhelming driver. You know, when I look at what's happening in the US economy right now, I went through what's happening to us. We're pretty good right now, we're going to be slowing, blah, 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 blah. I think the US is at least there, and because their interest rates are going up even more aggressively here, I think that we're already even starting to find out their economy is slowing, and I think increasingly as we go into towards the back end of this year, early next year, we'll find it slowing a fair bit. Now, their key question is that going to be enough to get inflation down, which is currently 8% plus? Is it going to be that going to be enough to get it down to 2% plus? And I think it will be yes, but it'll be a while before they know that. But the first thing that we'll need to see in terms of lower US dollar is signs that A, the US economy is slowing enough and inflation is very much clearly coming down. I think we'll get that in the next few months. If I'm right in that, then the US dollar weakens and therefore the Australian dollar goes up, and therefore an Australian dollar something like 70 to 73 by early next year is what I've got. A lot of that comes down to this view on the US dollar. It's a view that the US economy is slowing and inflation is slowing. If that's not the case, then we might get more of the same what we've had for a while, for a bit longer.
Fantastic. Any other questions? No. Awesome. Well, Peter, thank you very much for your time and sharing your expertise and your views on our state of affair. It's good to see that it's there's some positive outlooks for people, particularly with our economy holding up the way that it has been over the last 18 months. So I appreciate your time and your valuable insights.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone. And I know you enjoy Nick's commentary from here on in. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thanks,
Right.
Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
So now we're going to get into our next expert presenter, which is Nik Cree from SmashGo. A little bit about Nik. Nik's the founder of SmashGo, and SmashGo is he is a digital transformation coach and consultant working with businesses to embrace the online world, create a more profitable, scalable business in less time, reducing hours business owners work on, reducing the hours business owners are working, and increasing enjoyment and satisfaction. He has a penchant for laziness and taking shortcuts to achieve faster and more easily than traditional business. Geez, Nik, did you write this? At the university, he was a secretary. Now, he had a secretary write his assessments. Started 3 businesses he knew nothing about. Was a national runner up against industry experts in his first business, a national runner-up, I should say, national mortgage broking company, became a sought-after speaker in the second, a web development agency, and is rapidly building the third, which is the digital transformational consultancy. He's got an incredible network of speakers and specialists in his role as the host of Business Owners Smashing It Online. And if you haven't been on that webinar, I highly recommend that you do, particularly if you are an expert in your field. It's a weekly webinar series, and Nik loves helping entrepreneurs stop being a slave to business by getting their businesses working for them. Today, Nik is here to show you how to create the business that you've always dreamed of today and beyond. Nik Cree, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. I personally wrote that introduction as a tongue twister just to see how you could get your lips around it, but you did exceptionally well.
Well, you got me, mate.
So I think probably good to start by just setting the framework or the groundwork in that business has changed forever, as a consequence of the past 3 years. And what's really happened is that the way that digital marketing and online marketing was working back pre-pandemic no longer works. So there are new things that need to be done, and it's a bit like if you go back to the 1960s, Ferrari was a very fast race car. If you grab that engine out of a Ferrari and put it into a Ferrari body today, stuck it on the racetrack, what was a winner back in the 1960s is not going to be a winner this year. So things have just moved along really quite rapidly in the automotive world. In the digital world and the business world, it has been even more rapid than that. The changes happened over the past 2 to 3 years. So it's been a significant change. One of those changes is that with all the lockdowns, that's really accelerated people's or businesses' need to embrace the online space. So whereas before it was a look, we should get online. We need, at the very basic, we need a website. We should have some marketing systems. Today it is a must. If you don't have it as a business, then you are at a significant competitive disadvantage, and you're at a disadvantage to not industry experts but new people that are coming into the business. So during the pandemic, there were lots of people that weren't working because they were locked out of work. Some of them had lost their jobs, and so they're looking for alternative income sources. So what we saw was a rise of shops in online spaces. So like sites like Shopify, Etsy, where people could sell product. There was a dramatic increase in the number of people working from home, selling product from home, and starting to take a fair share of the market. So what sort of happened was that the big end of town, when you look at shopping malls and traditional bricks and mortar shops, because people couldn't go there to shop, then the only option they had was online. Some of those shops are online, but people had a lot more choice now. So these little Etsy stores that might have been 1 or 2 or 3 product stores, people were finding those, and they were selling things that were different to the large chain stores, and that really attracted people. So as far as consumers were going, all of a sudden they had a shopping mall which wasn't just down at Robina or sort of Queen Street in Brisbane. They had a global shopping centre, and if you think about how habits are formed, I think it was Stephen Covey that said, it takes 3 weeks to create a habit. Pandemic lasted longer than 3 weeks, so it was close to 3 years. So what happened was that people's habits of just going down to the local shopping mall have changed because they've spent at least 2 years doing stuff online, and you'll find that even supermarkets, they're still delivering. Their deliveries of food and shopping is well up on what it was pre-pandemic, and so that really just demonstrates people's behaviour has changed. So with that in view, what that means is that consumers or people are no longer really interested in brands. As in corporate brands. What they're interested in now are personal brands. So if you think about these little Etsy stores or little Shopify stores, they don't care about the logo, the big brand or anything like that. What they really are interested in is who's in behind this. What are the values? What is it? Why have they started the store? What's the story in behind it? So personal branding is something that's far more important than your corporate branding. So if you're in business, forget about, even though it's important to have your corporate branding, it's more important that you as the owner of the business have a personal brand, but also not only you as the owner of the business, but your key people-facing staff also have a personal brand which reflects the business brand as well. So you've got lots of little brands within your big brand, because that's who people are identifying with when they are making their purchasing and buying decisions. One of the another thing that's happened too is that it used to be that if buying online, people inherently didn't trust online. They trusted bricks and mortar more than they trusted the online world. Today, people are making purchases of tens of thousands of dollars online without ever visiting a store, and making all of their decisions based on what they see, what they Google, and what they see online. So for the traditional websites that we had, which was really your home page, about page, services or products page, contact page, that's no longer enough. You need to have enough information on there, or as much information on there as possible, for people to make a decision themselves without the intervention from a salesperson. Because they're not walking into a store, there's no physical person that is helping them. They need to be able to make those decisions on the basis of the content that's on your website, the content they see on social media, and the content they see on other places around the web. So if you think that sounds like a lot of work, it is. But it needs to happen. If you're not doing the work, then have a look at some of your competitors that are really winning the business now. They've already done that work, and they're the ones that are starting to get the lion's share of the business. So if you put it aside or put it in the too hard basket, then you'll very quickly find yourself in going backwards in terms of business because the online space has just really taken off. So that's really the time or the place to really invest is in your online presence. Doesn't mean you have to be an online business, but you need to have an online presence that supports your business, whether that be online or offline, and it really supports people to make decisions without having to pick up the phone, send through an email, or walk into a store. Another interesting thing to note too is that people's ability to enjoy delayed gratification has ended. So we're in an age of instant. So if people can't get the information instantly, so if they're Googling a product or a solution or an answer to a particular question they've got, they land on your website, you don't have the information there to give them immediately, they are not going to pick up the phone to ring you. Some will, but a lot won't, and they're certainly not going to fill in that contact form to contact you and wait 1 or 2 days for them to be contacted. What they are doing is going and opening up your competitor's site and looking for the information on your competitor's site. So you really do need to focus in on your website, the content that you've got on it, and really using that as a way that people can progress as a customer through your business. So no longer are you in control of a customer's journey as you would be if they walk into a store. You can't really guide them to do that. Our clients and customers are in control of their own journey. They want to be in control of it, and if you don't give them that control, then they'll go elsewhere. So that's is good for service and product based businesses. So website's no longer enough. You need to think about your website as part of a digital system. So you definitely need a website. That is a hub, a destination or a hub that people go to. It needs to be very content rich in the sense that people can make decisions on there without having to pick up the phone or fill in a form. It needs to be able to capture people's, at the very least, an email address, at best, an email address and a phone number to go to a second asset. That second asset is a CRM or a customer relationship management tool. So that should be connected to your website, and you should have a mechanism there to be able to capture people's email address and or phone number. And once you've got that, then you now have a free channel to communicate with them on email. Now, I know people say, well, people don't read emails today, which is true. They get, lots of emails get deleted before they're even read. But if they are interested in what you want, they're in the process of buying something or making a buying decision, they will read your emails. So don't think they're not reading your emails, and you can do other things with emails too. You can upload them to Facebook, create a custom audience, and find other people that are like these people. You can communicate them with them on social media if they visited your website and you have their email address. And so you may not necessarily be communicating by email, but email is a mechanism to be able to tap into other places where your customers are likely to be hanging out. The third thing is that once you have your, a good website hub and a CRM, you need to be able to drive traffic there. Now, just doing dances on TikTok or posting what you're eating on Facebook and Instagram is not enough these days. You actually need to have a good content strategy on social media. You need to be there consistently and regularly. And you need to sort of think that, customers several years ago, they would make their buying decision after about 7 touch points. These days, it's not 7, it's around about 27. So they need to see you 27 times before they make a buying decision. So that could be they see a YouTube video, they could see posts of yours on social media, they might have visited your website, they might have had some emails from you, it might have been a telephone conversation, might have met you at a networking event. So any one of those things. So it's a longer touch point cycle. So you need to think about what are the various means that you can really get to people on a number of different channels. Just having one channel is not enough. You need to certainly be on one channel consistently, but you need to be on a number of channels. And lastly, think about what are the the key, you need to be able to solve in the business of solving people's micro problems. So, so if you think about, let's say, lead magnets. So a lead magnet is a PDF document on your website, or it might be a a video or a mini course or whatever. And traditionally, they were really designed to attract people in to get their email address and might give quite generic information. Today, just generic information is not going to get people to leave their email address. You need to be able to give them a full solution to a small problem that they're struggling with. And what that does is it builds your credibility. It gives them an instant win. If they're getting that instant win, then they are going to take it further. And so being a micro problem means they're not solving their entire problem. They've just solved a small portion of the problem, and that builds the trust and the competence, or their belief in you, that you can solve the rest of it as well too. So it's almost like a demonstration or try before you buy type of thing. So you need to be able to do that online. It needs to be automated again. And customers in control, you're not in control, there's no interaction by you. Again, they're driving that interaction when they're ready to come to you. So that's all about having them attracted to you rather than you reaching out and trying to pull them in. And part of that there is really thinking about your content strategy. So you really need to have 12 months worth of content scheduled into your system that publishes at the very least on a weekly basis. If you can do it on a daily basis, or certainly on social media, it needs to be daily. But you certainly need a weekly content strategy. And there are some tools and some ways of being able to do it out there, so quite easily, so it's not an onerous task. I know that people think, when you're creating content, you're going to spend all of your days writing the stuff. Well, you don't actually have to spend all of your days. One of the programs that we run here is how to generate 12 months worth of content in 60 minutes without writing a single word. And we really can do that. So when we show people how to do it, it just takes all of that hardness out of it, and it means they can generate a good value content that gets into the search engines. People are actually looking for it. It solves their problems and starts to generate those leads and new customers. So there's a wee snapshot as to where we're looking into the future. Hopefully that has not overwhelmed you or sort of made you think, I'm going to put my head in the sand because it just looks too hard. It really is just about having a system to put in place. That's really what we help businesses do, is to put those systems in place so it's easy, it's simple, and it works. So if you want to find out a wee bit more about it, my invitation to you would be to come along to one of our Tuesday night free webinar sessions where we do have a guest expert on that takes one of these topics and really goes in depth in it so that you can walk away with some ideas that you can implement without needing an expert in there to do it and paying thousands of dollars. You get a win, you can do it, and it is a real demonstration of exactly the principles that I've talked about here today. So I'll drop that into chat right now, and the link is easyurl.co/Bosio, so ezyurl.co/BOSIO, and Bosio stands for Business Owners Smashing It Online. There endeth the lesson.
Amazing, mate. Amazing. Well done. Great, great pitch. I know we're going to be over our time, well and truly, but I think it's a worthy topic if anyone's got another 5 or 10 minutes to hang. One of the things that you brought up, and we've actually had plenty of conversations around this ourselves, Nick, outside of this forum, is moving away from the seller's journey and moving back into the buyer's journey. That's what I'm really picking up here. So the way the business is done from a marketing space, and I'll talk more about this next week from the sales space, we're moving away from what I call industrial age into the new age. And industrial age really is transactional selling versus relationship selling. So attraction marketing is all about you're attracting people, you're not selling to people. And I think the whole attraction marketing piece for those that are going to have an online presence is going to be the difference between whether they create long-term clients or whether they continually hunt for that smash and grab approach and get what they can and get out. So I agree, when we understand that the control is not on us anymore to sell, but the power is in allowing our purchasers to buy, that shift is going to make a huge difference to how you market.
And if you think about it as well too, remember the days of the aluminium frame windows that used to come door knocking, or the Kirby vacuum cleaners used to come door knocking, and then try and convince you into buying these machines. That was the way. That was a business model that people had for selling things. Try that today, and you are likely to be punched in the face or have the new pit bulls that people have bought set upon you before you even reach the proverbial letterbox. So, and the reason for that is people are so much more well-informed these days. We have this thing called the internet, and that is the source of pretty much all, the majority of information for people. Everything is at their fingertips. I was going to say on a keyboard, but it's not a keyboard. It's in a mobile device that's in their hands. So you have to really think about rather than pushing yourself on people, you have to think about how is it that they're finding information and where are they going for this information, and you need to appear there. So rather than you knocking on the door, you're looking for what are the doors they're knocking on, and so that you are opening the doors. So the door is opening a different way.
Can I ask Nick? Oh, sorry. You go, Adam.
Sorry, Glenn, just on that. When you say appear there, when you happen to appear there, I'm guessing that comes back to what you're talking about with personal branding, because when we appear there, we're not actually appearing to go straight for the sell, are we? We're appearing to create a deeper level of trust in how we are and who we are. So more educating.
It is that education, and you think about it in terms of, why are people there? They're generally there because they've got an issue or a problem to solve, and so you need to give them a solution or most of the solution to help them. So, for instance, I am no car mechanic, but I pretend that I am. So my water pump went on my car, and I thought I'll Google this and find out how to change it, because I reckon I could probably do that. And so on YouTube, for instance, there are all these videos on there on how to change a water pump for the specific type of vehicle that I've got. I got in there, I grazed my knuckles, I got oil under my fingernails, the thing wouldn't come out, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go and take it to to a mechanic. Who do I go to? Who do I look up? So generally, who's given me this information that's been credible, and that's generally who people are going to go to. So when you're presenting these solutions, what you're doing is you're presenting capability and giving them the tools to be able to do it themselves, but also knowing that there are going to be some blocks and some stops there because they just don't have the experience, or they don't have all of the tools that are required for it. So naturally, people are attracted to the person that has shown them what to do and how to do it. So that's what I mean by appearing there.
I was just going to add, Nick, there's so many platforms these days. Is anyone, which ones do you find the most beneficiary these days? Or I suppose it depends on the target, but
the one that you can use and the one you can use.
Okay.
There's lots and lots of platforms out there. The platform is it really is as good as you can use it. So if you've got something that is a whiz-bang thing that does absolutely everything, but you've got no idea how to get in there and make this thing work. I'm sure that I could probably drive a Ferrari, but I'm sure that I could probably drive it quite successfully into a wall because I don't know how to steer the thing properly at speed. So it might be more efficient for me to have a Hyundai. So that one I'm unlikely to drive that into a wall. And I'm unlikely to be scared to drive it. So it really is just what is going to work for you. To be honest with you, once a new piece of technology gets released, there are lots and lots of people that are using that technology or creating their own versions of that technology around it. So the core is the same. You just need to find something that's going to work for you. But the other thing I would say too is you don't need to spend a lot of money. There are a lot of free tools out there. that work until you sort of scale up and get to the point where you need to start paying for something. And there are a lot of tools out there that are low cost as well, that are really going to do the job. You don't need to go for the most expensive tool in the block, because it's not necessarily going to be the one that's going to give you the best benefit. So look at what you want to achieve, what are the outcomes you want, and how is it going to deliver it, and can you use it, or a member of your team use it.
Nick, pearls of wisdom as per normal. Now, for those on the call, Nick was just mentioning tools to use. I can't support him enough by saying this, is that on his weekly webinar series he's mentioned a couple of times, Nick has roughly half an hour where he introduces new tools to you. I cannot recommend you look at that highly enough. If you're wanting to go back in time, jump on Nick's YouTube channel, because there's recordings there of those sessions as well. My question to you, Colin, sir, is quite simply this. You actually floored me with your comment 27 contact points. I'm very interested in that, and more so around the fact of what sort of time frame would you suggest you have 27 contact points in before you become, in my eyes, a stalker?
That's a really good question, and one of the things that you can't be is a stalker. They need to be the stalker. So you can't be following them around. They have to, like those 27 points of contact generally are them stumbling across you. So when you do a Google search, for instance, and let's say, for instance, if you do a search of my name, I think at last count, every single listing for the first 7 pages were all mine. So they're all about me. And they're not all they're not all ones that I've generated. They're in sort of like a networking directories. They're in other people's podcasts. They're my websites. They're social media platforms. There are people that have mentioned me, like this particular forum here. We've advertised this, so my name is in here. So you need to think about what are forums there that you can appear in, that someone else will do the marketing for you. So for instance, if you appear in people's podcast as a guest presenter, they're going to be doing some marketing. That's going to be indexed in the search engines. So what happens is when people do Google searches, then they're going to see Mark Grant, for instance, guest of XYZ's podcast. And so it's not you self-promoting yourself, it's that you're on someone else's platform, and that elevates you, so it gives you credibility. And they're thinking now, well, Mark Grant seems to be everywhere. He's on this podcast, he's on that podcast there, he's got a YouTube video about such and such. I'll check out his website. What's his social media doing? So they check out your LinkedIn profile, your your Facebook or TikTok profile, see how you dance, and so they're actually in control of that exploration. And if you think about your behavior as well too, when you meet someone, for instance, either in person or you've caught up with them online, do you go and check out their social media profiles? Of course you do, and that's what people are doing today. So they'll go to LinkedIn. If it's me, I go to LinkedIn. I see all the social media profiles are on. Check them all out, and get an overview as to who this person is. That's why personal branding is so important, because people are checking out who is this person. They're not checking out who's the company they work for. Who is this person? And so they want to check you out first of all to find out whether they like you, whether you're credible, all that stuff. So those are some of the 27 touch points. There are some more complex ways of creating those touch points, so that if people come and visit your website, you can do things like retargeting and remarketing. So, if you've ever been onto someone's store and, you're looking at shoes, red shoes, for instance, and you've had that page open, and then you go and visit other websites that allow Google ads on them, and then you'll see these red shoes starting to appear all over the place. So that buys into a marketing principle called frequency and recency. So people make decisions based on how often they've seen something. That's why ads on TV just keep running the same thing repetitively over and over again. So it's that frequency they see it, and also recency. So the closer they get to pulling their credit card out to make a purchase, then it's often the one that they see, that's right in front of them. So you want to make sure that you appear regularly and frequently, but also at the time that they're ready to make that purchasing decision. So it's not as difficult as you might think. It's really is just thinking about your marketing strategy strategically. So that could all happen in one day, or it could happen over a number of weeks. It really just depends on your product or service.
Nick, got a question, and perhaps you're going to say, Matt, that's because you haven't taken the appropriate steps to get a decent online strategist. But got to be honest with you, mate, relationship-based businesses, when you have a web presence, the only one that comes through the web are price shoppers, and they're horrible because you know that you're not going to get them next year. They're going to go for the next price. So invariably, you turn your website and your social media off, mate. So how do you increase your online presence without attracting the price shoppers? Because price shoppers are horrible.
You just need a good online strategist.
Sure. And then secondly, every single morning, mate, I'd have 40 emails from online strategists, and they're horrible. They even ring you. They ring you and you sort of say, what is my online business? And they don't even know who the hell they're calling. And then, of course, when you say to them, well, what's your website? And their business is found at 375th page of Google. You're like, what are you calling me for? So I think that's probably why certainly those in the accounting space. And then also too, by the way, in the accounting space, those that really do well are those that are, multi-partnered firms with a dedicated full-time in-house marketing department. You simply can't compete with that. You just can't. So relationship-based businesses, how do we stop price shoppers coming through our online door? Because they're a waste of time. They're tire kickers. They don't want to take advice. And then secondly, of the 40,000 people that promote their services to you, how do you weed them out from those that just want a quick transaction and move on to the next? And surely that bubble's got to burst too, by the way. Like by the time everybody's got a really great online presence, I think you said earlier that those that have taken it up are obviously riding the wave of the investment that they've had to date. But probably, I don't know, is there only 25% of people or businesses that have a true online presence? What happens when all of a sudden that market becomes more and more flooded? You just become another number with a whole heap of noise, right?
Lots of questions there, but good ones as well. First thing I'd say, though, is any digital marketer that emails you for business, delete them, because they're using old school tactics. That's like the door-to-door salesperson coming to knock on your door. So if that's what they're doing...
Well, if anything, I've got more respect for the door-to-door salesman that knocks on the door, mate, because it shows that they're actually getting up and coming and saying... Anyway, sorry.
That's different, though. That's their motivation and the fact that they can take all these no's. But that style of sale is old school, and it just is ineffective, or certainly a lot more ineffective than it used to be. But any digital marketer that's coming through your email inbox is going to give you the same sort of stuff. So if you get annoyed by that, can't weed it out sort of thing, they're going to be doing the same thing with you, with your potential clients as well. They're going to be reacting exactly the same way. So you get rid of them, and that again is push marketing as opposed to attraction marketing. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that you don't have the budgets of, like if you're a small business, you don't have the budget of the larger businesses. So like, I don't have the budget of, say, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola can spend, what was it last count? I think it is in the billions in terms of what they spend for their advertising, and it's all brand advertising. Well, mostly all brand advertising. Can't compete with that. But what you can compete with is, or what I should say is if you're marketing and advertising your products and services, it's the wrong thing to market and advertise, because all you're doing is you're putting yourself up against all of those with those big marketing budgets. What you can compete with is Matt White as the personal brand. You know, who is Matt White? What does he do? What are his values? Where does he appear? Even so, that's why your social media presence is so important, because they get to see you not in your profession, out of your profession. They like you, they like your values, you seem like a genuine person. And if you think about what, who people want to do business with, they want to do business with people that are genuine, that they're likable, they get on with them. And once you in that realm there, price becomes not an issue. So in terms of your website, I mean, it's a difficult thing in terms of your website. Your website should only ever be, for a service-based thing like yours, and any financial services as well, it should only be a place where people can solve small problems. So you're giving them information that is valuable to solve small problems. You're not giving them a list of all of the things they can claim on GST. But you're sort of thinking about what are the issues and problems they have, for instance, with a child that keeps spending money buying apps on their phone because they've given the phone over to their kid there. How do we stop that sort of thing? So, and this one is close to my heart because I had a child there that spent over $1,000 on apps because I hadn't locked it down on my phone to stop them spending the money when I handed my phone over to keep them quiet while I was having a conversation with something else. My fault, but that there is a micro problem that you can solve. So if you think about what are the things that they have that are not necessarily county, they're sort of financially related, family related. How can you solve some of those problems? And that's where you start to get those customers coming along later on. And that's about your personal branding. And if you tell a story around that, about how it happened to you, then again, that makes you're teaching, and it makes you more relatable as well. As far as saturation goes, the market will never be saturated with good websites and good, systems. Just think about your industry. Let's say when you look at accountants' websites, they are all pretty much the same. There's no real difference between them, and so it doesn't change the equation of how do I choose an accountant. Okay, we're just going to throw a dart at a dartboard. That's effectively what people are doing on who's close, who's cheap. The only thing they've got to go on is, well, who's the cheapest? Because there's no other value in there. So we'll go with I'll just ask about price. So because they're all, and the reason why they're all the same is because you've got web developers out there that think, what should an accountant's website look like? Oh, let's go and check out all their competitors. They show these competitors' websites, other accounting websites, to their client who's an accountant, and they say, which one of these do you like? And they say, this one here, I like this one here. And they do, which pretty much is a clone of it. So there's nothing out there that makes you stand out in the market, and you've got web developers and designers out there without any creativity or understanding of what the client and customer journey is, and more importantly, any understanding of how that's changed over the past 2 to 3 years, and how to create digital assets that really engage and create customers. If you do want to get rid of those price shoppers, just publish your prices on the web. That'll weed them out before they ring you.
Yeah. Oh, and no, thank you. It's certainly sure. It was probably a question for my business personally, but even my clients' businesses, Nick. Everyone would say the same. People that come through the website are kicking doors, price shopping. So
it's a really common question, really common thing.
Yeah. But certainly you're right. Displaying your prices right off the bat will obviously weed out people from, and then we probably all suffer. Every single person on this chat would suffer from Dr. Google too, right? Dr. Google's a tax expert. Dr. Google's a sales expert. He's a financial planner. He's a general practitioner of medicine.
I used to think that my mother knew everything, but I've now discovered that my kids think Google knows everything.
I just want to toss a couple of thoughts in here. Nick, I don't get phone calls from people that have found me on Google every day or even every week, but when I do, I find that they've called me because they've seen something on my website that is answering their question. And like you said, they want to solve their problem. So I know I'm doing something right there. And probably 99% of the time with that then personal interaction over the phone, we can close a deal.
Yes.
Because it's sort of like they just wanted to get that warm fuzziness of talking with the person that was behind that and getting, it sounds like he is the same as the writing that's on those pages. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's why that consistency of messaging is really important from socials to web to you. It's like when they speak to you, it's what they expect. When they get to your website, it's what they expect. And if you think about how it works, Google is, if you think about traditional newspaper, Google's the headline, that enticing headline that says, oh, what's next? I want to read more. Click, go to the website. Website's got the content there that really helps them, and they sort of scan through that, and then it's well, how do I find out more? That's when they contact you, pick up the phone, that sort of thing. Yeah,
the other point was about the touch points, and I agree with you that the numbers moved a long way from 7. I wouldn't have thought 27, but that's okay. But and a case in point at the moment, I am frustrated, turning it around the other way. I invited I put an ad out there for builders or anyone interested in building a pergola for me, man, and they rushed to send their first contact in. They come out and have a look, measure it up and say, oh yeah, we could put this start there, probably around 2,000 or maybe around 4,000 or stuff like that. You think I can actually get a written proposal back from any of them? Far out. And I've just been chasing them up this morning. I've rung 4 of them. Oh yeah. I've had to chase them all like it's 4 weeks. I wanted the bloody thing built by now.
That's probably going to be more of an area that Adam's going to cover next week, which is all about sales process and service. And generally, these days, the person that wins the business is the one that can respond the quickest to give the customer exactly what they want, at the time they need it.
Yeah, and like I'm looking at it, it's not like I'm building the Empire State Building or something like that, but $1,000 either way is not the deciding point. Which one's going to work and which one's going to do what I want it to do and get passed by strata. And guys, I'm just so frustrated. I've got to chase them, all of them, every single one.
And part of the problem is that they don't have a system, a good enough system to be able to deal with it.
System.
And so they end up, like any small business, they end up on the tools. They're working. They're doing the jobs, and but then they come home at night to come and do the quotes, or early in the morning, and it's like, oh, I'm just too knackered. I'm too shagged. I can't, I'll do it tomorrow.
At the same time too, and probably coming back to your point, Nick, about putting your prices and the types of jobs you want to do. Gee, I bet there's urgency around those clients that we actually really, really, really want to do work for.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's also a wake-up call to myself that I saw an email this morning when I'm going through them that, I need to get back to that guy, because I went and had a look at a place in a shed where I could film some stuff for him, and I haven't heard from him since. I better follow him up. And which is why I'm also talking to Nick about which CRM I'm going to get, and I want it now.
Yep.
So I need to get on that side of it and pedal the bike a bit faster and a bit better too. So,
and part of that's headspace too, and I think one of the biggest issues businesses have is producing quotes and proposals, because it feels like an onerous task.
I hate it.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to think about how can you put in place a system that you can get a proposal or a quote out within 60 minutes of seeing someone. If you do that there, and it's easy for you, and there are ways and processes to be able to do it, then you'll pretty much win the business most of the time, because you'll be quicker than anyone else, and that speed there it's not only about the speed, but it's about people's perception that
it's a response.
You care and that you respond.
Yeah.
And so this is your behaviour. So it's likely your behaviour is going to be the same when you're on the job as well too.
Yeah, it's a response.
I think, and I don't know whether Adam's going to talk about that next week, but certainly I know that I've fallen foul of investing too much time in an engagement. So therefore then you're invested in, gee, Nik Cree better sign my engagement form because I've got multiple hours and multiple visits with him. You're never going to get away from trying to connect with people personally, but certainly if you've got a pro forma and a not automated, but a fast and efficient engagement letter system, it just means that if someone's not interested in buying with you, well, you can sort of put it to bed and move on to the next person. But if you're investing multiple hours, well, then they have to buy from you because you're 6 hours into an engagement with Nik, and how are you going to get that back? So moving on, even for people that don't want to take your services up, but certainly, Nik, I get your point about putting a base level fee arrangement at them right off the bat is probably a good way to weed them out. Yeah.
On what you're saying, Paul, 48% of business owners do not follow up their quotes or prospects.
Yeah. And I'm one of them occasionally, and I want to change that.
And picking the phone up as well. People propose to me and they send me an email. I'm like, it's just another junk mail, right?
Yeah. That's awesome, guys. Well, thanks, Nik. Some very valuable content, and I'll build upon that next week, and I'll really go down the path of highlighting the difference between the transactional world and moving into the relationship sales and how we can create stronger foundations for our business moving forward. So, Nik, you did mention earlier that if anybody wants to get in touch with you, do you want to just share that again so that some people can have those at hand?
Look, if you just Google my name, Nik Cree, Nikree, there are multiple ways that you can get in touch with me. So if Google is my friend, but otherwise, if you go to the website SmashGo, SmashGo.co, again, you can connect with me there.
Fantastic. Well, that's another wrap for our weekly webinar series. Next week will be the last one, so we will be talking sales. So we've gone through the complete transformation of where the economy's at, what you can do with your accounting, your finances, your banking, your marketing, your solutions, your investments, your insurances. So it's been a really good, round, balanced series. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next week when we can put a big bow on what we've been able to deliver for you all today. But thank you for your time. Julianne, appreciate you coming. Andrew, thank you guys, and obviously to Peter who shared his wisdom earlier on.
Thanks, guys.
See you all next week.
See you next time.